Happy felicitations for the new month. It is the 2nd of September 2019, and I'm glad you've joined us today here on AM Live with today's installment of This Is a Point. Of course, we take a look of the week that has been as far as politics has been. And one of the ticklish issues that continue, of course, to bedevil us is the Division of Revenue Bill, of which we shall be focusing on this morning, and a raft of other issues as far as the referendum is concerned as well. Also, a big day for school children, back to school, and I know many of them also fighting blanket victory this morning. But of course also we know that yes, people are seeking, especially from the government, the capitation for the schools right now, which has been delayed for at least now 2 months since this is in July. And we're in September right now, and still the capitation is still a big issue. But we have also in studio with us this morning, up and early today, Professor Nyang, good to see you.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm okay.
Good to see you. So the battle is still drawn on as far as the Division of Revenue is concerned, and the governors now are saying we're going to cripple the services, the operations of the counties. Is that the way to go?
Well, I mean, if the money doesn't come, Debarl, it's very difficult to finance county operations, you see. That's what we are saying, that we do very basic things like collecting garbage, paying casuals in hospitals to do some things. And by the way, our workers, most of them are mortgaged to banks. They take loans for all kinds of things, and their money is deducted by the banks monthly. And if the bank doesn't get, if they don't get their bits of the pie, then there are penalties. And you see, so workers get extremely anxious when they don't know that they will get salaries. That's why we are saying maybe for the first month we could have made arrangement with our own banks to do this or that. But if it goes further than that, those measures might be very difficult. So being realistic and telling the national government, that both the National Assembly and the Senate, that please, if these things goes longer, it's going to be very difficult to run services in the counties and pay our workers. If last month the workers went on strike, for example, in Kisumu, and we had to make arrangements with banks to pay them. And so to go back to work, and they happily went back to work. Now, it's not our mistake that they're not paid. It is the mistake of one simple thing, that is for Parliament to agree on the Division of Revenue Bill so that the money can be sent to the counties. And as I said in my article in the Star 2 weeks ago, there's no need setting up an institution, that Commission of Revenue Allocation, where you have the firepower to work for a whole year on how to divide the division of revenue, or how to divide the money in the budget between the national government and the counties, because all the what do I say, all the criteria are there in the Constitution and in the various laws. And this group was set up so that it can help Parliament to make this decision. Now, if they have spent all this and they've even briefed fully IBEC, chaired by the Deputy President, that we arrived at these figures as follows. This is the responsibility we're being given. I don't understand how we then sit back, okay, you might have arrived at those figures, but thank you very much. We have another way of arriving at the figures. Now, so I call it disrespect for intellectual labor. First, why did you set this group in the first place?
Okay.
Because you knew we needed intellectual labor to arrive at the figure. And somebody who can spend time looking at all the data necessary are set out in the rules of the game to arrive at that figure. Now, if it is disregarded, then you set up yourself for a period of controversy, because then Parliament will come with this figure, the Senate will come with this figure, Treasury will come with another figure, and we in the Council of Governors will say, look, there is chaos here. We ask ourselves a very basic question. Under what principle are these decisions are being made? Because as far as we are concerned, the principle we understand in the constitutional law and the law states very clearly how it should be done. But now, what are we doing? So we went to the Supreme Court to seek the interpretation of the principles laid down in the constitutional laws. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court said, look, we can appreciate what you're saying, ladies and gentlemen, but please go out there and settle it. It's a political issue.
It's a political issue.
And to some extent, you would say the Supreme Court is kind of avoid its responsibility, because the same constitution says that when in crisis or in conflict, there's one body which can help everybody interpret the law. That is the Supreme Court.
But the Supreme Court was actually just pointing you back to the Constitution, because all that is laid
Yeah,
out in
but
the Constitution.
that's what I'm saying. In some they are right, but in another way they're also not right, because the same Constitution saying when in doubt, when all is said and done, there is one body that can help interpret these things. That's the law, the courts of law. You can do it the High Court, the Appeal Court, Supreme Court. But you see, now we tried as governors to discuss with all these people, the National Assembly, the Senate, the government, and so we kind of are perturbed at the lack of progressive discourse, the lack of ability to come to a conclusion on this issue. That's why we said,
right.
Well, when it comes to that, then what can we do? We can just be very frank with the nation and say, if we don't get the money, well, things will come to a standstill in the counties.
Right, it is consternating also that, yes, we still have an 18 members committee trying to, not really committee, but yeah, the mediation team trying to actually mediate on this. But it is consternating, I should say, that up to now we've not found any, amicable solution to this particular problem.
And yet I think in all fairness, it's possible to have a compromise, because when things are like that, then you say, okay, fine, you stand at 335, we stand at this. Can we come with a figure that we can all agree on? And in that regard, you could go back to Commission Revenue Allocation. I said, okay, look, is there a possibility that we can agree on this figure, pending looking at other issues, so that during the financial year, we can then agree on something that is now solved through a supplementary budget. I mean, these are possibilities. We don't need to get stuck as if it is cast in stone that we can't agree. I think people can agree and say, look, let us postpone this kind of figure and let us do a supplementary budget subsequently, so that it also gives us time to soften, gives us time to review our stand. That, I think, is a possibility that we think that both the National Assembly, the Senate, and the Treasury should consider. And I think we in the Council of Governors are very reasonable. We would say, okay, look, if that is the way that we are going to solve this thing, so be it. We're quite prepared to listen to reason.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, thank you. Right, and you can see also Professor Aman Manyora is here.
The Luanda man.
Yeah, so we should just let him walk in as well.
Sure.
Karibu sana ndugu.
Asante.
How was the weekend?
Asante kabisa.
Yeah, so you know you're not mic'd. I'll mic you much later. Right, but now we want to see the good, the bad, and the ugly in our dailies. Today we begin with the Daily Nation. This is what is headline in the front page of the Daily Nation. Treasury slept as tax defaulters got away. That is a splash today. Judiciary on the spot too for giving orders stopping KRA from demanding taxes. Moribund Tribunal for 14 months. Disputes over taxes have been piling up after the National Treasury delayed in appointing members to the Appeals Tribunal, creating a 283 billion shillings tax hole. This story is tucked away on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. And what the numbers say. Crunch. For a full year, the Kenya Revenue Authority could not collect taxes because the tribunal was inactive. Also, 283 billion shillings, the Kenya Revenue Authority has been unable to collect 283 billion shillings from big taxpayers. 803 by last week. Some 803 appeals had been lodged with the Tax Appeals Tribunal. But now, of course, since it was not there, then that was also stalled. This story continues inside the Daily Nation this morning. Make sure you grab a copy. Treasury slept as tax defaulters got away. Also, your trusted guide to preparing KCPE. Your trusted guide to preparing for KCPE. This is a junior sport, even a school. I'm back on the school calendar today. Make sure you grab a copy of today's Daily Nation for this pull-out magazine of a junior sport for, of course, the KCPE. Some of the questions, not really for the exams, I should say, but of course the guidance there that you have them inside the junior sport as well. Starlets glow all the way. Jubilation as Kenya beat Malawi in Olympic qualifiers. This story tucked on page 46 of the Daily Nation today. Leaders, we will block Mao plans, they say. Politicians cry foul over plan to evict 60,000 families as House team demands post-eviction plan. This story continues on page 8 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, Western Hotel had linked, it says Western Hotel land linked to a Deputy President's associate who once claimed ownership of a hotel used the same IR number in bid to irregularly acquire prime land in Westlands. You can follow the story on page 6 of today's Daily Nation. The Standard is up next, and this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Standard. Uhuru in new airport drama over Ruto ally. That is what we have on the front page of the Standard today. Warning: presidential guards order photographers to delete images of Uhuru being received by his deputy, security chiefs and Nandi Governor Stephen Asang at JKIA. This story continues on page 5 of the Standard. Uhuru in a new airport drama over Ruto ally. Remember, some 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, when there was a headline similar to this, also the deputy president came out stoutly denying that and saying this was fake news. And this is another story here on the front page of the Standard this morning as well. Uhuru in new airport drama over Ruto ally. You can follow the story on page 5 of the Standard. And we have no comment here. State House spokesperson Kanze Dena, on being asked about some photographers asked to delete images of President Uhuru's arrival from Japan. There was no comment. This is on the front page of the Standard. Also, missing Dutch tycoon last spotted at City Club. Investigation is ongoing. Police say Top Cohen had lunch with 2 women in Westlands on the day he disappeared. That story continues on page 7 of the Standard. Also, dollar inflows hit record high. Increased remittances coincided with the lapse of a June 30th deadline for the return of taxable money that has been stashed abroad. Follow this story on page 29 of the Standard this morning. Let's see what the Star is holding for us this morning. And this is what you're waking up to, the front page of the Star. How KQ lost 2 billion shillings in baggage fraud is what is on the front page of the Star this morning. There was a scheme. As a result of incorrect billing, the airline lost about 2.2 billion shillings in 6 months. KQ does not have a centralized system that integrates all the excess baggage in information. This story continues on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. Also, tough times here. We have Sudan's former president Omar al-Hassan al-Bashir inside a cage at a courthouse where he's facing corruption charges in Khartoum, Sudan. This is August the 31st, and you can follow the story also inside the Star this morning. Also, DP Ruto claims BBI proposals ridiculous, will divide Kenyans along ethnic lines. You have the story continue on page 6 of the Star this morning. Also, Rift Valley MPs take the Mao evictions controversy to President's doorstep. The impending Mao evictions snowballed into blame game yesterday, with furious Rift Valley elected leaders saying they are not guided by sound policy and the blessings of the executive. They want to seek audience with President Uhuru Kenyatta over the issue. The story continues on page 2 of the Star this morning. Treasury chief imposes 3-year freeze on hiring to reduce the country's wage. Government agencies are headed for a budget cuts of monumental proportions following Treasury's tough conditions for approving funding requests by ministers or ministries and state departments. Targeted allocations for consumable goods, staff upgrade and ICT equipment. Follow the story on page 7 of the Star. It's all about austerity measures there. That is inside the Star this morning. Let's see what we have on the front page of the Business Daily. I will show you what we have on the front page of the People Daily later. Bank clients pay 84 billion shillings fees in red cap squeezies the splash today. Lenders invent commissions and service fees to net more revenue and beat legal control in the cost of loans. Bank customers paid 84.1 billion shillings in fees, commissions and service charges in the 6 months to end of June, as the lenders devised new channels of boosting their revenue to compensate for lower interest income from loans. The story continues on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Can you imagine here, Pop was stuck in a lift. Pope Francis can be seen here waving from the windows of the Apostolic Palace overlooking St. Peter's Square during the weekly Angelus prayers. Yet at the Vatican, the pontiff apologized for arriving late and told faithful that he was stuck in a lift for 25 minutes before being rescued by firefighters. Also, Treasury web portal to reveal names of Eurobond buyers. The Treasury has set in motion plans to put up a web portal disclosing details of Kenya's debt position in a move intended to raise transparency of the country's public finances. The investor relations page, similar to that used by listed companies, will have information on Kenya's debt holders, loan public debt, debt calendar, and monthly reports keeping track of the country's indebtedness. You can follow the story on page 4 of the Business Daily. Also, Equity Group hires World Bank official as new CEO. Farm Equity Bank has had John Wilson, a former manager at the World Bank's private sector financing arm, IFC, as its new Chief Operations Officer. You can follow the story and find the details about him on page 4 of the Business Daily this morning. Also on the ticker today, rich Kenyans return 118 billion shillings from abroad, while the Kenyans filed to return 118 billion shillings assets from foreign countries in the final year of a taxation pattern. Officials' data shows this, and the story continues on page 6 of the Business Daily. Also, the digit today is 35%. That is tax. The Treasury and KRA are proposing be imposed on all advertisements booked by betting firms. Kenyans reduce shopping in tough economy. Survey shows reduced spending, with households preferring economy packs that give them value for money. The story continues on page 12 and 13 of the Business Daily today. 88 Stanbic staff retire early. That is what we have also on page 8 of the Star. The exiting staff make up more than half of the 135 employees who had applied for the voluntary early retirement, pointing to growing concern on job security in the industry. As I've mentioned, you can follow the story on page 8 of the Business Daily this morning. Taifa Leo is also up, and this is what we have on the front page of Taifa Leo today. Lazima Ruto aingie Ikulu. That is what Tanga team is saying. Wanasiasa 18 wasema naibu rais hatalegeza kamba katika mbio za kupigania urais 2022 mwaka 2022. And you can follow the story on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Maafisa wa KFS waanza kuingia ndani ya msitu wa Mau, and you can follow the story on page 2. Also, we have a standalone picture here. Ujirani mwema wa Sudan washiriki ibada jijini. Also, you can follow inside the Taifa Leo this morning. Let's see what we have also on the story. Also, 6 wafariki, 10 wajeruhiwa katika ajali. You can follow the story on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. We cross borders now and head over to Tanzania, pick up the Citizen, and this is what is on the front page of a Citizen in Tanzania this morning. New call to cut air travel costs across East Africa. New call to cut air travel costs across East Africa. Uganda High Commissioner proposes that scheduled airline flights within the region be regarded as domestic trips. But the Tanzania Civil Aviation Authority says all factors at play need to be considered before arriving at such a decision. We have this story continuing on page 2 of the Citizen this morning. And here's some of their bites there. Richard Cabonero from Uganda, he says, I understand it is a long-term process which requires cooperation among governments. For instance, flights between Kilimanjaro to Entebbe should not be treated as international routes flights. We have also Hamza Johari, that is Tanzania Civil Aviation Authority Director General, saying, quote-unquote, liberalization of air transport shouldn't be rushed. Adequate preparations are needed. We need to establish what such a decision will mean for local airlines as well as revenue. Also, we have Ladislaus Matindi, ATCL Managing Director, saying, quote-unquote, if you want to have better code sharing, a commercial arrangement is a must. It creates room for expansion of airlines reached without committing money, and will enable us compete with large airlines. That is a story. You can follow the story on page 2 of The Citizen. Also, man challenges presidential term limits